guess I have to open the music too. Oh, delivery.
I'm not. I mean, they've been ringing whoever's bell all fucking day. So,
well, it's good to get your bell rung every once in a while.
Occasionally on a Tuesday. Well, good morning.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Lawrence Lewis.
And this is Sister Christian.
As she said, today is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. Yeah, we're recording this a couple days early because, schedules. This is the Producer's Happy Hour. It's a weekly podcast with two producers on opposite coasts. Christian is in lovely New York City. I'm in lovely Los Angeles. We're exploring what it means to be a good producer week by week, especially as we're coming out of the shutdown and navigating the coronavirus.
I'm going to say that, maybe we're exploring how to be a mediocre producer.
No, Sister Christian. How dare you?
Okay.
Well, we take that back.
I will take that back because, I'm not feeling it today, but I'm telling you, maybe by the end of the show, I'll have perked up.
It's good to express that because, the thing with social media and, podcasts and all this kind of stuff is like, we're amazing. Listen to us. But you know what? The reality is we're just people and we're just trying to figure it out like everybody else.
I know. And today's a rough one and we'll get into that in a minute. But more to the point, we find ourselves being asked to take on greater responsibilities from a variety of guidelines created by multiple sources. It's maddening.
Yes.
Now more than ever, it's important for us to keep sharing our experiences and ideas because we're all having completely different experiences right now on sets.
So send us your stories, share them with us. We love voice memos. Send it to us at producershappyhour@gmail.com. Let us know, are you working? If you are, how? How are you keeping your crew safe? What does it all look like to you?
And please rate the show on Apple Podcasts. Please share the show with your friends, your colleagues, your, second cousin from somewhere that you always forget to mention. We want these stories to be heard. It seems like we're doing a pretty good job in this industry of getting back to work right now. But even looking at our government right now, they're not doing a very good job of getting back to work. Like, could you imagine somebody showing up on set who had just recently tested positive?
I've heard those stories. Christian, today we have that I think is going to be another two-parter episode interview.
Really?
Yeah, with Cheri Wilder, who...
Oh, yes, it was like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, we recorded. It was a long interview because there was a lot to talk about. Cheri Wilder is known around these parts as Bidzilla. She's a freelance bidding producer that has, been in the industry as long as Christian and I have, and she bops around from major company to major company bidding all these massive campaigns, and she's the go-to when people are inundated. That's who they call.
I remember right after our interview, I was telling Sasha, I was like, oh, she had even the job she was bidding when we all went dark sounded like some massive thing that would have taken, 2 months to bid. So I'm sure she whipped it out like that. Yeah. But
Totally.
Total professional.
And much in the same way as our conversation with the KJ, we first start talking about coronavirus and what it means to be working in this industry at this time. And then, of course, we wander on over into the unavoidable conversation of systemic racism in our industry. Because Cheri is a Black woman working in film production. She has a lot to talk about. She has a lot to say. So we took the time to give her the floor and we listened and learned.
Yeah, which is all we should be doing.
Yeah.
So, it was such a pleasure to speak with her too, and to the unapologetic, no excuse making, balls to the wall attitude that she has is like my favorite kind of person. So it was really great.
Exactly. We do keep the same company. Christian, how are you doing?
Oh, kill me right now, everyone.
Feeling like a mediocre producer today instead of a top professional?
Well, let's get that straight. I'll always be a fantastic producer.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm just feeling like
go.
a mediocre person today. And I'll say that because Sunday night I produced a remote shoot in Korea. It was a continuation of a previous job, 3 weeks of editing and then one more day in Korea, and then boom. So, it started at midnight, our time on Sunday night, and went until around 3 a.m. So that's off schedule. And then the next job happens to have a Japanese client agency. So I've been up periodically throughout the nights for that as well. So I'm just knackered right now because my director is in LA at this point, and that time span is 15 to 16 hours. I have to get everything to them by end of day, but they may have something that happens to the night. So I've been setting alarms just to check, emails and stuff, and I'm just done. But that the point is that I'm not apologizing anymore for if it's insensitive for me to say that I'm exhausted, because I am.
Yeah.
And I can't help that somebody is or isn't working at this point, or what they've chose to do or not do. I've unfortunately am exhausted from this new way of working that we're doing. And it is just, I don't see an end in sight. If this becomes a new norm.
This is the new norm. This is it.
I know.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. A friend of mine had their first day back to work in a, boots on the ground shoot. And same thing. It was like, wow, okay. That's a lot. All the COVID compliance, all the thinking about how to keep everybody safe. And then you show up and everyone's got masks on and everyone's kind of miserable. I mean, everyone's happy to be working. Don't get me wrong. It's just a different mood on set.
Yeah. It is. And we're in charge of everyone's safety. How are you, Lawrence?
I'm fine.
I love fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yes.
I don't know what else to say. The day-to-day, I feel like is feeling much more normal. But then when you start digging into like, oh my God, work, am I working? If I am working, I'm over my head, and looking at the news and the politics, all that is still pretty tragic.
You start to turtle a little bit. I've decided that I'm going to go back to therapy.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
I got the name of somebody who handles busy, important boss ladies.
I know,
perfect. I'm so
I
excited. She's going to totally put me in my place.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. So, yeah. And now that everything is virtual, why not?
Yeah, you can make the time. It's good to hear you say that and be so open about it, because, there is such a stigma with mental health, and we shouldn't be ashamed.
Oh, I'm not. Because
yes,
these
please.
therapy sessions we've been doing for the last 6 months, I need to take it to the next level.
Yeah,
Sorry,
our
Lawrence.
own personal happy hour. Yeah. There's a couple news items I wanted to talk about before we get to the first part of the interview with Cheri.
Lay them on us.
The big news of the day, Christian, and a portion of the story ties to your neck of the woods, because theaters are having major problems. And there was an article in Variety, I think it was yesterday, that the fate of the global movie business, this is called clickbait, may hinge on Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, where would we be without him?
Yeah. But apparently what they're doing is some movie theaters, I think mostly Regal Cinemas, have been putting on the billboards, 48 states have reopened theaters safely. Why not New York, Governor Cuomo? So there's some tension there, and there's a growing sense of desperation, according to this article. And it's a fear that is radiating all the way to Hollywood, according to this article, which is trying to figure out a way to profitably release blockbusters when these markets have been closed.
This kind of reminds me of, do you remember when Pearl Jam and Metallica and everybody had like these fights against companies like LimeWire and Ticketmaster and everything?
Napster.
Yeah, but then eventually now it's all just streaming services, and musicians don't make money anymore. Basically, this is kind of what this is. The blockbusters is what I think is what this feels like.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, which is
then
scary. I hear
scary because
industry.
Blockbusters are what pay for any
everything
movie below $30 million. So that's kind of scary to think that, little $30 million comedy movies won't, they won't risk making them as often because they don't have the big blockbusters kind of raking in all the money to cover the losses of the misfires. Which that kind of fear just limits creativity.
Well, the desire to have new content, beautiful, huge action flicks, that desire is still there in people. I think the formula isn't yet. So I think we'll have to go through a couple of, skin sheddings in order to get back to where we were. We'll see.
We'll see. But Regal Cinema's second largest theater chain in the U.S. with 536 theaters, over 7,000 screens, will officially shut all its doors in the United States for the second time during the pandemic. It doesn't say if this is a permanent shutter. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And then the other one that came out today was AMC Theaters. This is in Hollywood Reporter. AMC Theaters says cash resources to be largely depleted by the end of 2020, early 2021.
Yeah. You know, it's not surprising because this has happened to all of us. We've all used our savings. I mean, there's only so far 9 months, 8 to 9 months can stretch. And so, I mean,
yeah,
I just wonder how much they had in the kitty. Exactly.
For some of them, it's hitting the fan, which is a major bummer. So I'm going to play happy music instead.
I mean...
Which means it's time for our interview, Christian. Did I leave it on a sour note?
Well, no. I mean, I think that it's what we're all feeling,
That's
I mean, we're trying to get back to work, and I'm, already... The other thing I ordered was a pool noodle. That's a little foreshadowing for you folks.
That's a little foreshadowing. Pay attention to this interview with Cheri Wilder, Bidzilla. But first, go to our website. Go to the Do the Work page.
Mm-hmm. We made a page on our website with anti-racism resources for you to educate yourself on the issues of racism that have long plagued our society and our industry, to be honest. And right now, people are just, scrambling to figure out what could we be doing when we should have, I'm glad that there's awareness there.
And foreshadowing to part 2 of Cheri's interview, it's like, are these conversations just talking, or are we seeing action happen? So,
right. Did you make yourself feel better, or did you actually do something?
Yes, and also on our website is the Take Action page, which we have a lot of information on there. It's mutated. It started with a lot of financial resources for people that were struggling in the pandemic. It also moved to things where you could help donate or contribute to other people or other causes. And now it's got a lot of voting resources on there. We Got the Vote, which is a fundraising program to help clear the fines of people in Florida who have served their debt to society so they can have the right to vote back as they should. Better Know About It is Stephen Colbert's website that collects all voter information for every state in our country, so you can easily access information about voting in your location. Power to the Polls, if you can volunteer to be a poll worker this season. And also Postcard to Swing States. It might be a little late, but if you can get them in time, write them up and get them out to help convince people in swing states to get to the polls. On to our interview with Cheri Wilder.
Cheri's an experienced bidding producer with a demonstrated history of working in the commercial production industry. I believe she said she's been doing it. I know it says 20 plus years, but we were talking about the mid-90s. Skilled in foreign and domestic budgets of all levels, proficient in live events, VR, AR, and post-production estimating. She does it all.
She does it all. She's a strong bidding professional with over 20 years experience. Let's take a listen.
I stopped counting at 20 as well.
Yeah.
So at first we like to ask how you're doing, where you're located, how is your health, how's your family?
I'm Cheri Wilder. I'm in Los Angeles. I am a freelance bidding producer in commercials, and luckily no one in my household has been infected. I live with my partner. He actually works in super frontline. He works for DHL.
Oh, wow.
So we've been incredibly lucky.
Well, thank goodness.
I bet he sees a lot, though, out there every day,
and
delivering to people who...
Luckily works in the warehouse,
okay.
So he doesn't have to go out. So he's a forklift operator. So he's mostly in the warehouse. And at least I know that they all wear PPE and social distance, and he's got face shields and all that kind of stuff. So I know that he is safe. So that's a good thing.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear you guys are both safe. So I want to talk about just real quick, because it is a unique thing that you do, full-time freelance bidder. And you've come up with this amazing moniker that is great marketing and great way for people to know you, Bidzilla. Yeah. How did you come up with that? And how did you just kind of land the most on-call freelance bidder in all of West Coast?
I moved up the ranks same way most people do. I was a PA, and then I was, PA'd on set. I PA'd all different genres. I did television, and I did a couple features. In LA, I never went anywhere on a feature because I got to work on The Long Kiss Goodnight and I worked on True Lies. But
I love Sam Jackson. I love that movie.
Which all of those movies were awesome, but I was like post PA on one and prep PA on the other in LA, and I never got to go anywhere and meet anybody. Except for I did meet Big Jim, which was crazy to meet Jim Cameron. Yeah, he was kind of scary. Anyway, so I did all of that, and I was the PA on commercials standing outside the motorhome going, what are you doing in there?
Yep.
What's that?
What's the budget? What's
Oh, you have computers? What are you guys doing? You know, so I was that PA. They were like, would you please go pick up some trash and lock things up? I'm like,
I want to know what you're doing. That was exactly
and
me.
I don't want to pick up trash. So yeah, I was not a very good PA because I didn't pick up trash. Anyway, so I managed to start coordinating and be a staff. Like I got hired on staff. PA moved up really fast to court, like within weeks, because they hired me and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so she's smart enough to do something else. And got lucky, and I worked for a woman called Cindy Akins, and you guys have all been in the business for longer than 25 plus years. Yeah. So I'm working on almost 30 years in business, right? So Cindy was one of the lions in the beginning of the industry. She worked for Tony Scott and Ridley Scott for years. She ran RSA. She ran propaganda for a hot minute. She sort of moved over to a smaller company when she wanted to slow it down. And I happened to meet her, and she was willing to teach me. The woman who was the production manager, she wasn't fond of, but I don't think she was that fond of me either, because I don't think she likes anybody. But she thought I was smart enough to learn how to bid. And she essentially threw me in the deep end and said, here's a budget, figure out how to do it. And my very first commercial is one that is still seen, still in funniest commercials when they run funniest commercials from like the early 90s. I did the Hostess commercials with the lady on the inner tube that had the like swirl that made her look like a cupcake. And then the shark would come and bump her, you know, and she would go flying, right? So I did those commercials, and David Bishop was the director, and that was like in 1993. Yeah, 1993. And maybe 94. So I learned how to bid then, and the movie Godzilla came out.
Oh, with Matthew Broderick?
Well,
yes.
So Zilla was on everything.
Taco Bell.
By the time, like we were, but I mean, we called everything Zilla. Like, you know, I'm doing a Podzilla cast today for Zilla people. You know, like everything became Zilla. I have a conference call Zilla for BBDO Zilla. You know, like my friends and I would just put Zilla on everything. By the time I left Atherton and went to Omaha for a hot minute, Diane McCarter, people were teasing me about Bidzilla. And then I left Omaha after about 10 months with them and went to Alex Blum's company and worked headquarters. I was at headquarters for 3.5 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was at headquarters too, from in 2002-ish, maybe.
So you were right after
commercials in New York. Yeah.
I worked for headquarters from 99 to the end of 2001 and was unceremoniously let go. But that's a story I'll tell another day.
Tom Mooney didn't do it via guitar.
No, Tom Mooney and I got on really well. It was not
Tom's
him.
Great.
There are a variety of things, which I think has to do with bigger issues in, being an African American woman who doesn't suffer fools and knows how to speak up for what she wants, when she wants, and how she wants it, and sort of didn't care about 40-year-old men when I'm a 29, 30-year-old girl and F you and the horse she rode in on. But Andrew Denyer kept calling me Bidzilla with that British accent. Okay, Bidzilla. And then email got invented, right? Because email just got invented. So I was like, well, here we go. And then, you could have a personalized license plate. So why not?
Right.
So when my email got invented, I got Bidzilla. And then when you realize you had to secure Bidzilla on every platform to keep that, I did that. So I became Bidzilla for everything. And so people to this day, vendors, when people say, oh, you're Bidzilla, if I call and they're, I need your email and I'm like, they're like, oh, you're in the system, you're Bidzilla, all that, which really is helpful. And obviously it's my license plate. So I am not incognito. 1,000 years I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And so you always see, the big Jeep with Bidzilla license plates, So now I have a little teeny Honda and it's actually kind of funny. A little purple grape with Bidzilla now.
So you got into this bidding flow.
Mm-hmm.
It just clicked with you and you just loved it?
I think it literally was one of those things, like Cindy believed that I was smart enough to figure this out. And she sort of saw that, you know, it wasn't about math and the numbers, because bidding is never about math and the numbers, right?
No.
It's about the thought process and the creativity. You have to understand how to fit all the people in for all the pieces and parts and places. I mean, because literally, you know, the bidders, you essentially are figuring out the entire job for everyone first.
Yes.
You got to figure out how many people, how many places, how do we get them there? How do we cast it? How do we find a location? How do we secure a location? Who goes where, when, how, what, right? Before I was a bidder, it used to be, who do you know who can, right? That's the question we ask in commercials the most. Who do you know who can do X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
And before the advent of the internet, because we started working in this business before there was the internet, right?
Yeah.
You always had to know who can. And so I had like lists of things, and I had phone lists and, you know, at least contact lists of people who can. And so I think that was also how I was able to stay creative. I knew enough people who can, and I knew they all had to be on a shoot at some point. Even if it wasn't my people, I knew that group of people had to fit in. So I figured it was like a puzzle, and it was enjoyable to me to figure out the puzzle.
We used to have it in our original show open. It's more than numbers on a spreadsheet, producing, bidding, all of it. And as friends of mine, you know, PMs of mine started to kind of get asked to bid jobs, you know, and they say, how do you bid? Like, can you walk? I'm just like, close your eyes and produce the job.
Right.
Yeah.
And really, you could probably name every head of production in town in LA right now, and a couple in New York. I trained them. You could probably name a whole lot of EPs right now who were coordinators when I was head of production at either headquarters, Omaha, or Atherton. You can name a whole lot of people who never did anything and who bypassed me and are doing all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, half doing it probably.
Yeah.
But speaking of shifts and moving around and how the industry's changed, we're in a whole new era of film production. And so I know we have a lot to talk about, but I do want to dive into this a little bit and talk about the new cost of filming under these COVID compliance. I can't call them mandates yet, but...
well, they kind of are. We
they
sort
are.
of have a mandate now because the white paper and the return to work thing sort of has dictated how and when and what. And it's interesting because I did read the page, even though I didn't write you the notes that you needed to start this page. One of the very first things you asked like to think about is, have you shifted your thought and have you shifted your job? What was the pivot? So I pivoted because honestly, you know, freaking out in the pandemic, I got certified as a COVID compliance officer. Because why not? In June and July, when I was trying to decide, like, and EDD was not paying people yet. And you were in that, like, oh my God, I'm going to become homeless on the street. My mom was like, well, I'm like, I know, but oh my God, right? So all of that. I now work in television. I am a COVID supervisor on a television show right now. Now, it's still a freelance job, but it's just one that went from August to December, which, yay, to get paid, you know, for 4 months. Fabulous. But it's a lot of work. It's really hard, and it's half our rate. You know, half my rate.
Yeah.
Well, and it's 14-hour days, and you know,
and you're basically asking adults to comply to things that they may or may not want to do, but you're also in charge of their safety and in some respect. So
my new mantra is, I'm here to make you safe, not happy. And
I think we should have t-shirts.
I need a mask. I need my mask to say, I'm here to make you safe, not happy. And I walk around with a pool noodle, because a pool noodle is about 4.5. It's about 4.5, almost 5 feet long. And if 2 people hold a pool noodle, the distance from your elbow to your hand on each of you makes 6 feet. So I'm like,
oh my God, that's amazing.
And you know, this is hard. So we have to find ways to like amuse ourselves and still make it work.
Yeah.
What I have found, though, to answer the question about cost and how you do this, is it is ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
I watched all the people who invented all of the, you know, clean sets, pure sets, all of the people who are selling PPE now, the producers who have pivoted into doing things because they have a friend who's a doctor and now they figured out how to do this. Now they're price gouging.
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah.
and
100%.
it's bananas because those of us who bid, right? I keep stuff on file. So I know how much a Purell station cost last year versus how much it costs now. And it's doubled by 250%. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Hand washing stations. I know how much that stuff costs. You can get those things for $25. Now they're like $150 a pop. The big foot pedal ones, $25 a day. Now they're $150 a day. People are killing the game and making money. I'm not mad at making money, but it's expensive to keep you safe.
If you're doing it right.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because I just had a bid, the first one since I've been back, go through a cost consult EVP. So there's a note about every single line number, every single one, and then they slashed and burned the PPE, which I had not at all, I mean, by any stretch of the imagination was trying to do anything more than what we would pay, maybe 20% more as a pad. But I mean, they were just like, why is this all necessary? So there's also
because we're in a fucking pandemic, you dipshit who's never been on set and trying to tell me how much things cost. Oh, sorry.
That's exactly. I mean, I think verbatim, that's what I said.
That's a line in my, the reply. When you get the cost controller notes and you have to write back. I always, you go by and you do line by line. Yep. I have to go back and re-edit all the fuck you.
I know.
You got to write them out. You got to write them out the first time to get it off your chest.
And then you edit.
I always leave one in. I'm just like, nope, can't do that. We need to be safe.
Yeah.
And that one's
I know literal fuck yous, but yes.
Yeah.
Somebody once said, you write it hot, send it cold.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Right.
The other thing that I have learned now, because I'm on a really nicely well-funded television show that NBC Universal is paying a lot of money for. It's the very first show written and produced by Native Americans. So I'm their black girl, right, on the 200-person crew. I'm the only African American
I'm
female.
sure. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's 3 guys, 2 in set and 1 in transpo that I've seen on our 200+ crew. But there's a whole lot of Native actors and lots of Latinos and a couple of Native or people who have of Native descent who are in the producerial roles, which is actually kind of cool.
That is.
And she's a woman, the lead head writer.
Oh, that's rare.
But it's very interesting how much testing costs. And I know commercials aren't doing that. And because I've done this COVID supervising thing and been paying attention, and NBC has even higher standards than the white paper. So A-zone people are testing 5 times a week.
Because the white papers aren't great, but go
on. People who are doing this want to make television and want to make commercials. They don't want to pay attention. So even in my situation, they don't like it. So yes, you're asked to be the hall monitor for a bunch of babies who are 40 and 50 years old, right? And they don't want to wear masks, and they're hot and they're tired and all of that.
Well, they've not also been directly affected by it, where a lot of us have been. So
and some of them have too, and still can't get the memo, which is amazing to me. But testing is very expensive. My friends that I know of aren't really doing it on commercials. And unless you're shooting more than 3 days, I don't think that anybody's paying for testing for commercial shoots.
Well,
I haven't seen anybody doing it. Okay, because they haven't been here that I've
mandates
seen.
Here. There are. And then the 2 companies I worked for, we had a minor scare on the last job. And both the company I was working for and then the next company, after I explained what the minor scare was, are both just like implementing moving forward, always bid for testing everybody before the job. And I was like, great.
So you're doing 1 test then?
Yeah, but these are commercials, so they're not more than a couple of days worth of filming. So you test, make sure everybody is good before you start, and then test anybody who's going to be around the talent who has
close in.
Exactly. So camera, AD, director, that group of people.
Hair and makeup, wardrobe, etc.
On set props. Yeah, but we're just gonna scrap that and do everybody moving forward.
Which is great. I was the last job that I was on. It was a 4-day shoot, and we had over the 4 days 64 OCPs and extras. And so the original concept was to only test people that had physical contact in the scene, which was about 8 of them. Not even that, 6 of them. And just the more and more we got into it and got deeper and deeper, and it was a football thing. So it was people yelling, people cheering, people running.
You have to test everybody.
Yeah, I finally got everybody on board to test the entire 64 talent, since they were the ones on our set not wearing masks and exposing the crew. I couldn't get the whole crew tested, but we got all the talent tested, which worked out.
Yeah, I have lots of opinions about it now because of doing this and seeing what the difference is. And I don't think commercials are acting in a safe manner. And it's really unfortunate. And I know a lot of incidents that have happened. I mean, there's been incidents on TV features. We've seen the big ones and Deadspin and all that kind of stuff. Right. We even had an incident. We had one in the very beginning while we were still building. And so it didn't really affect a huge amount of people because we weren't shooting, so we weren't staffed up. They were building, so it only really affected the people on the stage who were building. And it was very tiny. It was a father-son and 2 people around them, and that's all we had to deal with, and that was in August. But then since we started shooting, we had B camera, operator, we PCR, and we rapid, and the PCR test caught it, but you have to wait on results for PCR tests. Those labs, it's 48, usually it's 72 hours. We have full-on CVS Minute Clinic on half the lots in the city, so we're using CVS rapid testing. The rapid test didn't pick it up. The PCR results finally came in, and that's what HR caught and flagged, and that's what stopped us. So we had to quarantine 6 people in addition to one person did actually get sick, but all of them are coming back. So after 14 days, they've managed to make their way back. So that's been interesting. Rules in TV are very different. I had to learn a lot. Like I sent somebody an email on a Saturday and you thought it was a federal case. They were like, I'm sorry, we don't do anything. Why are you talking to me?
Why are you emailing me?
I had it at 2 a.m.
It was like at noon on a Saturday. And by 1:30, the EPs were like, I'm so sorry, stand down. I'm like, whoa, y'all, I'm trying to make sure somebody doesn't die on Monday. So you got to answer my email on a Saturday. I'm sorry. But that was one thing. But yeah, it's amazing how expensive it is and how many people are required, to actually do it. And there's only really like 2 or 3 really good testing companies, though, I'm hearing in LA.
And, some of them are only 70% accurate. It just depends on which brand. And, you have to do the research on machines.
Test, I guess, is the one that CVS uses, and that's 70% accurate. And then the PCR tests that we're using are about 80% accurate or 85% accurate.
You still have this window of possible, it's like going outside without your mask.
And if they, stopped at Starbucks on the way home from the test and got coughed on.
Open a door.
The only thing that saves our bacon is that we test so often. Like I'm an A-zone person, so I literally test every day that I'm working. Wow. We test 5 days a week. I do 2 PCRs and 3 rapids, when we have access to the rapid, we're not on location because those machines don't move.
Is your nose just worn out?
Thank goodness I have allergies, so my nose is always running, so there's always plenty of sample.
Here, I saved some sample for you. Here's
right, exactly. But the B-zone people test PCR once or twice for our group and rapid at least 2 or 3, and then the C-zone people PCR once a week.
I think that's great. That's better than White House is
doing.
What our people are doing. Yeah. White House isn't even doing that much.
Oh, God. Can we?
I'm not.
The whole hike up the steps and ripping your mask off because you really can't breathe. The calling in, coughing while you're on the phone with Hannity.
Oh, my gosh.
This is gross.
You know what? I can't lie. The night before, I said to my boyfriend, I was like, I hope he gets it. I'm praying for it. And then the next day, I was like, now I'm praying that he has bad symptoms. And then the next day, I'm like, I hope he infects the whole freaking White House. They deserve it. Nobody deserves to learn a lesson worse than them.
So, side note, did you hear Amy Cohen Barron's, the school her daughters go to? Massive outbreak. Had to close down.
Amy,
so
the Supreme
huge.
Court weirdo,
Justice nominee.
Handmaid that they want to.
The handmaiden that they want to.
So she had her kids were at her nomination,
and so they super spreaded their whole school.
Allegedly.
Well, somebody did.
Yeah,
somebody did.
He blames the Gold Star families for making him.
Oh, I know, but they're just
so
they want to
rude.
kiss him all the time. I'm like, who wants to kiss you, dude? Nobody's kissing you. Come on.
Azira Khan, the dad who was eviscerated in 2000. He was he excoriated him on Rachel Maddow the other day. Like, how dare you? Yeah.
So no, but studio money allows for us to be one of the safest industries, I think, to get back to work.
They have the money, they should be spending it. The amount of money that we spend on things that we don't really need because we're entitled in our industry versus what we need to keep safe. And I also find it really nice that on the lot I work at Paramount's lot, and it's not that busy on the lot because none of those people need to be there. The ones who just work in the offices, they're all at home. So there are 2 shows, NCIS and another show, plus us that are filming.
It's big among the seniors, so it's definitely
right. They'll never end. The show that will never end. But those people I hear, they like got on that show and now they're trying to retire. Like those people will never do anything else. They'll retire after that show.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. You know, you've been on a show for 10 years. You don't have to work again.
You don't have to ever work again.
It's crazy.
Thank you, Cheri, for that chat. Part 1 only. We've got a whole nother part of that.
Yeah, it takes me back to those times. I mean, I can remember, when I started, we'd just gotten computers and how people were bidding by by pencil. So it definitely takes me back to those times and those people that,
She's been around the block. She's the real deal.
I know, and I know that I've received .0s in the,
Oh, totally.
back then with her name on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is Bidzilla?
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Yeah. So between the pool noodle and this, I've got all my strength back in order to handle what I need on set.
Good. I'm glad we got you back there.
Well, Lawrence, the show was edited and co-produced by Rob Bloomkey.
Artwork and logo design by Christopher Daniels.
And our music was composed by Kyle Puccia.
It sure was. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're back next week with part 2 with Cheri, Bidzilla. Until then, stay safe, stay connected. Make sure your voice is heard. Go vote. Check your registration. Stay active.
Yes. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Clean your phone. Please clean your phone. I mean, and wear a mask. But don't forget your pool noodle.
Send us your emails or your voice recordings to producershappyhour@gmail.com.
Lawrence, how can people reach you directly?
2 different ways. For voiceover work, which is keeping me afloat right now, Christian, voiceoflawrence.com. Producing work, which I still love, LawrenceTLewis.com. What about you?
SisterChristianProduces.com. Get on me.
Get on her. Bye.
Bye.